So you try to figure out whether or not Kog'Maw's gonna be AP or AD, or whether or not Ezra's gonna go Crown of the Shattered Queen, or just going a little poke on AD. But we're here to talk about that on the new League Lounge episode of episode 8. We're here with Volter. Volter, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How is everything going with you?
So far so good. There is a situation that I have going on, but we'll talk about that later. But today, we're gonna be talking about factors of a game, which is a two-parter that I mentioned before on the last episode with Xena X. Now, we're here to talk about updates, which is considered reworks, such as AD or AP rework, buffs or nerfs, and especially on champions too, like how we're gonna rework some champions that could possibly impact the outcome of a game. So I wrote this as a kind of quote. So you can agree with me or disagree with me, but hear this quote for a second. A champion can still be played whether or not they are buffed or nerfed, but there is a higher chance of the champion being played when they are buffed. Do you agree or disagree with this statement?
I will 100% agree with that statement, and I'm even going to so far as to bring it up an example of Ari. In case you didn't know, recently she had a mini rework where a bunch of her numbers got thrown around, and some big changes, including her ultimate and her passive, uh, just seemed more appealing to most players, especially since now her ultimate is quote unquote resettable. And before this rework, she was almost never played because there were champions that just did her job better, like, for example, Xerath or LeBlanc. But now that she's been mini reworked, she kind of has her own archetype of this super dashy burst mages or super dashy mage assassin. And I think if she didn't receive this buff beforehand, she would not have been played as much. I do think old Ari uh, is successful. If you remember from the beginning of the season, Twitch.tv legit Korea hit rank 1 on NA, and he is an Ari one trick. And this was way before the rework too. So
Oh yeah, I remember him. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
just
Oh yeah.
regarding that point, it's basically Ari could have been played then, but she's much more played now since she got buffed.
Now, when I looked at it, I realized that she could potentially be the next, like, not next, but the same as Ramus. You know how Ramus got his ult reworked also, and it actually was like playable.
Hmm.
So would you consider this as being like a Ramus kind of thing, a Ramus strat? The fact that she, that kind of thing actually makes her playable, versus let's say Volibear. He actually had his entire kit reworked, and I think it was Fiddlesticks also, right?
Yeah, they had complete VGUs.
So, would you consider like even a single ability be impactful, or would you think a whole kit would be actually really good? Because, like I mentioned before, you mentioned before, when Ari's ult has now been changed versus, like, say for example what I mentioned, Volibear's kit entire chain has been changed, but it actually made it so much better for Volibear to be played on, versus Akali is actually more playable, not better, but more playable.
Hmm. I don't think Ari needs a full rework akin to Volibear or Fiddlesticks. I think.
No, I'm
Oh,
saying, would it be better? Would it be better to have a rework, a whole kit rework, in general, versus a one ability rework?
okay. Well, that I think that's kind of a case-in-case basis because really the abilities are what define a champion,
Okay.
and depending on what's strong or not about that champion, sometimes it requires a one ability rework. Sometimes it might require an all like full kit rework. So, for example, Katarina, she had like a soft rework with a couple of her abilities, and I think her identity is still fine, and she's stronger than what she was before. But then we compare it to something like Fiddlesticks, where the his kit was very problematic because you really only used it or used like two abilities at most, and everything else felt super weak. So by changing his kit, it provided him with much more strength while also, you know, keeping the same identity while buffing everything else. So I can't really concretely say like one's better than the other because it really depends on the champion.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I want to hear. That's what I was looking for. So that's where I'm here to bring up about see certain questions. You can give out some answers. If you think this sounds disagreeable or not. So the first question is that what aspect of the buff is considered playable? My example I thought would be considered healing, any form of damage, or ability haste.
Hmm. Healing, damage, or ability haste?
That's
Honestly,
that's my opinion. If you have any other opinions, if you think there's something else with it, or whether or not you disagree with that, then let me know.
what would be considered a big buff?
Cause here's the reason for why I think these three are considered like one or the other is considered like playable. It's because healing. You have Warwick, for example, that can actually like heal a lot of damage and that actually can impact a champion that could be really good. Who else will be considered a good healing champion?
Soraka or Vladimir?
Soraka, Vladimir, Nami, uh, Jenna will consider be a good shielding person, I guess, but
She's
mostly
a shielder,
yeah.
but
Who is it? Sona. Sona will be good for healing, because the fact that you can really amount to how much shielding you can get, but also the healing a little bit can actually be a lot damaging than when it gets. Although you said Soraka, Soraka is a good example, the perfect example. Damage in terms of like one-shotting person and all that too. Zed will be it. Ability haste would mostly be an AD person. So let's say for example, who would be a good ability haste person? Udyr.
Aatrox would be pretty good.
Aatrox, right? Aatrox, Jinx, maybe.
No, she doesn't need
No.
ability haste.
Then who will be good for ability haste? Someone who has the fast resets.
Vex would be pretty good for ability haste.
Vex. I remember there's a champion. Why do I keep forgetting about him? That he's basically his. I want to say Yi, but anything that basically can just rework any ability like in a matter of seconds. Jace, not Jace.
Something that would reset like Master Yi.
No, like a ability that will reset like an ability, not an ultimate, but an ability. Like
Tryndamere resets his
yeah,
E
Tryndamere
cooldown
reset.
a
You're right.
bit.
Tryndamere reset, especially when you crit. He actually reset slow reduces his cooldown. Was it his Q?
No, it's just his E cooldown goes down if you crit.
All right, his E. And then no, Yi also actually you're right. Yi's cooldown also goes down whenever you add auto attack, and his Q
Yep.
goes down. That's what I consider ability haste.
Oh, okay.
Maybe like
Well,
something
in
like
that case, Aatrox also has that in his passive.
Aatrox. Okay.
Karma has that for her ultimate, and
What about Nidalee? Or not Lily Nidalee. Oh,
Kai'Sa
Tristana.
has it with the
Tristana.
E.
Tristana.
Oh, yeah, Tristana in Kazakhstan.
Exactly. Something that was kind of that can impact and reset an ability. Like Yi would be perfect if it resets an ult, but Tristana and Kha'Zix with the abilities at least that can her W Tristana's W can like jump over stuff as soon as she kills another person. She jumps over again, along with Kha'Zix jumps over and then kills and jumps back. That's what I like about ability haste. That kind of aspect of the buff is really playable if you can if that timing actually is worth like doing like a kill or a team fight.
Okay.
That's why I'm talking about ability haste. Damage, like I said, is a one shot a person, like a Zed, for example, or Kiana. Healing in terms of like Soraka or any particular healing in general, Warwick and all that.
Mhm.
So if you disagree or anything like that or agree, what aspect of the buff is considered playable?
What aspect?
Here, I'll give you another question. Question B: what buff is considered unplayable still? Which is I will consider movement speed, AR or MR, and crowd control. Because no matter what crowd control does, it depends on the champion itself. But I don't think crowd control can really be could be playable if that crowd control doesn't really affect globally. Like Diana, for example, or Rel.
So you're saying that if a champion got more crowd control, if it's not global, it's not useful?
Yeah. I don't know. Like for example, MF with the global ultimate, not global with the spread ultimate, that can work. Lux with the laser, Ezreal, Jinx, Senna. That's the only perfect example would be Senna, cause that global ultimate, like shooting with damage and shielding another person, it would be really good. That kind of shielding will actually be really helpful, but it's not crowd control. So I think that if you get caught in the middle, like and you get crowd control on that, would be really helpful. That kind of situation I think will be playable, if you know what I mean.
Mm, I don't know. Maybe I just don't like the description playable versus unplayable.
Like if a champ, like for yeah, it's a bad question to be honest.
Like, okay? Are you saying if a champion received a new crowd control
Yeah,
after a patch, and you're saying it's gonna be like unplayable against them?
yeah. Like would you consider that as be
Okay, so
unplayable?
okay, well, I'd rather use.
Like would the crowd control factor be impactful? Consider be like it would be considered as playable. Like would that factor of crowd control be good or not to make it playable?
And by okay, so by playable, you're saying like would giving this new thing make the champion played more often?
Exactly. So let's say for example, Diana's
Oh,
ult, it doesn't bring it together. Would that champion still be considered playable or not?
yes.
Really? Even when Diana does not have that bring in on her ult, it would still be considered. She would be considered playable still.
I think so.
So if
Cause
oh
okay, the ultimate definitely throws people off because it brings them in closer and they're typically forced to flash. But in usual setups, Diana doesn't really require the CC in order to kill her targets. The CC is more so to disrupt whatever the enemy players are doing.
mm-hmm.
So even if she didn't have that, so long as she's stuck onto whoever she's targeting, they will still die and the result will still occur.
So that's where I'm bringing that question up. Like, would the crowd control factor be considered like unplayable? Like, not crowd control factor, but if I were to remove any crowd control on that person, would that person be still be playable because they have no crowd control? So that's what I thought. I thought the crowd control buff would be unnecessary on certain champions because it wouldn't make sense to it would be really good to like CC someone to like not restrict their play skills and all that too. But like for example, movement speed. Zeri for example, Zeri movement speed. I talked to August, one of the champ designers in his Twitch stream. He says he likes his movement speed on Zeri because it is considered one of the champions that makes it like a unique champion that can go like speedy. And I kind of
Right.
I kind of thought about it. It's like it makes sense, but I still think movement speed will be unnecessary and still unplayable. Because no matter what, if you do get caught with CC like Lux, you get pretty much screwed up.
All right. So there's this misconception between people or all players, but movement speed is highly underrated.
Okay.
And I say that because even a single tick of movement speed can make or break the difference between you dodging a skill shot or you catching up to someone or stuff like that. Basically, however many units required to change the outcome of the effect
Mhm.
can all be changed from even a single tick of movement speed. So like even though people were memeing on like when Nidalee got 5 movement speed reduced, that impacts a lot of her gameplay. Cause now with 5 less movement speed, she arrives to camp slower, she ganks slower, she can't catch up to people as easily, even through her dashes, because she has less movement speed. And even though it just seems like 5 is such a small number, in a game of relativeness where everyone's movement speed is around like 340-ish starting level to around 400 later,
Yeah.
like that 5 movement speed makes a huge impact.
And speaking of champions, I do want to bring out. There's another question for this too. I like how we're transitioning into this very quickly, but there are certain champions that I want to bring up, and there's this question that I've thought about. It's like in the terms of nerfs, what aspect would a champ be playable even after a nerf? Example would be Aphelios, also known as Mr. 200 Years. He obviously you know about the debut of Aphelios. He was super stacked on his ult. Even with
Oh
Infernum, he
yeah.
was one shotable. He was like whoop, and then there's a pentakill, right? Even the heavy nerfs that I saw and witnessed that he received, he's still playable in 2022 right now as we speak. So,
Right.
what aspect would a champion would still be playable? Like Diana, for example, would Diana be considered playable if she was nerfed still? Let not like reworked, but if her abilities got nerfed.
Well, the problem with that is now you have to compare it with other junglers that fill the same archetype.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why, or because Diana's so strong right now as an AP like ganking jungler, you rarely see an Evelynn or Fiddlesticks in your games anymore as you go higher up in Elos, because Diana just does both of their jobs way better. So if Diana were to get nerfed, you'd see higher play rates from these other champions. And even obviously it takes a couple days to figure out whether these number changes really affects how badly the champion becomes. But once that all settles down and they figure out like this nerf is actually harmful to Diana, I can't or like why should I play Diana compared to other champions? Then they'll probably stop playing her as often.
Okay. Like I mentioned,
So,
like I
oh,
said,
yeah, you go first. You go first.
yeah, I mentioned about Aphelios. Like I said, even with the heavy
Yes.
nerfs that he received, that he did receive some AD buffs and all that too, blah blah. Blah, but it was small. It's very like bandage wise. But
Yeah.
even in 2022, he's now being played in LCS or whatnot as we speak. So
Right.
that's what I'm thinking about in terms of like how you can actually play it because Aphelios is still okay. Like even after the heavy nerfs that he received, even Viego or Renata or Zeri. Zeri got huge nerfs during these updates. And she's still being played, but not as good as we thought she is, but she's still being played. So that's why I considered what aspect of a champion, like of a buff, would be still be playable. Would it be damage? Would it be healing? Like I would be considered as what I said, ability haste. Would those aspects be considered make a champ a playable champ, despite them getting nerfed and all that too?
I think AD and AP, depending on how huge the cut is, I don't think it makes as big as an impact on pro play compared to other like stats. Cause at the end of the day, like it's a person's skill that really determines the outcome of whether they win that on the champion or not.
Right.
I will say once again, it's case by case in terms of what changes affect what champions. Because with the Aphelios, no matter how many times you change the numbers, he has 5 different guns he can work with, and with those 5 guns, it's hard to find a good pinpoint on what's too strong or not because he has so much flexibility between his kit that like it's hard to figure out this one single part of his kit is problematic,
Right.
which is why like outside of you know 200 years when he first came out, like the Infernum, huge Infernum nerfs. Outside of that, they had been like piecing it little by little because they can't pinpoint what's the huge problem with them. With Zeri, it was a little more obvious that like everything was super strong with her, especially how she stacked movement speed with her tank build. And so, if you looked at like her recent nerfs and to the nerfs that are coming out in a couple days, like or maybe not even a couple days. I'm pretty sure it came out today, but like her main problem is movement speed, and even despite the fact that her movement speed has been gutted, she's still going to be played because her champion is just that flexible with it. Now, if you were to do the same nerfs to a champion like Ashe or something, that's a lot different because she doesn't have as much skill expression to, you know, create any sort of variety because like really, what else can you do with Ash besides press W, press R, and kite with Q?
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot going on with her. So if you want a more generalist answer of what I think would affect the champion the most, it would be cooldowns, it would be base health, and it would be mana costs on a champion.
Oh, mana cost. That's right. Mana cost will be huge for that. Oh, that's right. In terms of, we were gonna backtrack on champions, but I want to talk about items. Let's take for example mythic items, right? Ever since the release of mythic items, like that actually also changed the game of League of Legends. With
Okay.
I'm gonna bring it up right now. Hang on. So like to say for example, there's obvious ones like Luden's Tempest, Lianji's Anguish, Kraken Slayer, Gale Force, Immortal Shield Bow, right? But I do want to take about say like Frostfire Gauntlet, Luden's Tempest, Language Anguish, those old items that got reworked to combine said items, right? Like for example, Luden's Echo. That has a similar binding of Luden's Tempest, but the Luden's Tempest got combined with what item? To be honest, like honestly, I'm so dumb. I'm not that old, but if you know Volter, what item would you say is combining Luden's Echo to Luden's Tempest? If you remember your history.
So what's combining it?
No, no. What item will be considered like combination to Luden's Tempest? There's Luden's Echo, and what other item would you consider is a combination to combine, Luden's Tempest?
I'd say pre-worked Morella Nomicon before it got swapped over with Void Scepter.
Oh wait,
Cause
so you're saying Morella Nomicon it combines with Luden's Echo to make Luden's Tempest? Because it's a similar.
wait, I'm
No, no,
so
no, no, no,
confused.
no. So what I'm saying,
Okay, okay, okay.
what I'm saying is that you know how Luden's Tempest is a new version of Luden's Echo, right? But
Yes.
I do feel like there's another item that makes it as Luden's Tempest. Otherwise, the name wouldn't be there. So I was thinking like there has to be another item that basically combined Luden's Echo with another item to make Luden's Tempest. But I'm looking at the old items right now, and I'm trying to think about it's like what other old item would combine together. Like Rabadon's Death Cap, right?
Yeah.
The old item was Rabadon's Death Crown, but why would they change it to Death Cap? It's like what will be the change of that? You know?
I think it's just for naming aesthetics to make it sound like. Cause, okay,
They even
let's
removed
just
Static
take it
Shift.
from like.
Like I will say this, they even removed Static Shift and they add an freaking Hextech Drake. That's
Yeah.
that's the same thing for freaking Static Shift, but why would they remove that item? That item was so good until they put into a Drake, and I thought just put it as an item, but just nerf it. That item was so good for other people that actually heavily like made ADC existing or any other AD
See,
champion.
I'd argue with that and saying because of Static Shift, it provided old champions with something that they shouldn't have, which is wave clear. Cause with Static Shift, everyone could basically fulfill the role of a Sivir just from building that
Hey,
item.
hey, you
And I
dissing?
think that
Hey, you're dissing Sivir, bro.
no, I'm not. I'm not even dissing Sivir. I'm saying because of Static Shift, Sivir's job is basically taken by everyone else.
Yeah.
Because okay, let's be honest. Sivir's main goal is to wave clear until she's fed, and then one shots people with Q or kites them with Q.
Yeah, that's right.
But with Static Shift, anyone could basically become a pseudo Sivir because they'd be able to clear waves super easily with Static Shift. So I
Okay.
think that weapon was problematic to begin with, and I'm kind of happy that it got removed, although I miss it on like Yasuo or Tristana.
What
But
about
that's the point.
what about Hextech's items? Hextech Revolver, Hextech Protobelt. Although that one is still there, it's just got renamed. Hextech
Hextech
GOP,
Roundabout.
Hextech Gunblade. That one, Hextech Revolver Gunblade, was on Akali. That was so broken.
Yeah. Once again, it's like a problematic of like who used it and why would they use it.
I have a question for that.
Protopelt, I think.
Sorry, I have a
Okay.
question for that. What made
Yeah.
what made Akali so broken with Gunblade or Revolver?
Revolver was the base one, but the problem with Hextech Gunblade is that it provided both AD and AP, which Akali scaled off of both, and then it also gave Omnivamp on top of that, and
Oh
an
my
active
gosh.
that scales off of AP and AD.
Oh,
So it's giving her, for her first item, it's giving it such a power spike that it was unhealthy for the game, but only two champions could ever uh, viably use that, which was Katarina and Akali,
mm.
which means they would be able to Omnivamp tank a lot of games while still building a lot of damage.
Yeah, that's what I consider it because they remove all that because of the fact that they want to add in mythic items. They want to add in like said like uh what would be considered a 80 or AP item now in for mythic?
Like an old item that could have been considered a mythic?
No, that not the new item now. Like what would be considered AP and 80 like Hextech Gundrake Gunblade. I'm look
Nothing really. I guess. I guess you could either or argue Sunderer because it provides AP or Magic Pen and Armor Pen within its Mythic passive,
Divine Sunder,
but
okay.
obviously the Sheen stat scales off of base AD or bonus. Gosh,
80.
I don't know. Either it's some sort of AD, so it's like you can't really use it for AP champions unless you were going like a Kali or Katarina because they can apply on hits like well,
Okay.
but there's no real item that I could specifically say that works for AD and AP champions that would build AD or AP.
Like I'm bringing it up because I want to make sure items also are the counter are a big factor in terms of like the game of the like to win a game basically. And like I said, the moment they released mythic items made old people feel like, oh, they're screwed, you know, because these new items they basically combine certain old items to make it into a huge like level 2 item, you know? And I feel like
Okay.
that's what really set the old players off versus like the people who just got new to people who just got adapted to the new system. Like Kraken Slayer for example. That's a Vayne item, you know? And
Yeah.
people assume like, "Oh, apparently Kraken Slayer is just going to be huge because once you grab Vayne, it's OP, like you're just basically done for. Versus Ludus Tempest, that's just gonna one shot person and Bleeding Anguish. That's gonna burn a lot of people because of how much it actually creates. Versus and Duskblade or Drakthar. That one, what item would be considered as a lethal? What old item would be similar to Duskblade in terms of lethality? Looking at it right now.
I mean, Dustblade was an old item though.
Really? Where?
Dustblade of Drakthar was an item before the rework.
I'm trying to look for it right now, but I can't see to find it. How is that?
I remember that because I'd always go, because okay, here's why I would know this is because I used to play Pike mid before the item rework,
Yeah, I mean,
and
I know that
every
too.
game,
Yeah.
yeah, every game I would be Tiamat into Yomu's into Dustblade Rush, and I could stack it, and it just wouldn't get locked out because it wasn't a mythic item.
Really? Cause okay, that's
Dustblade also used to give bonus damage. It wasn't by a cooldown, it was just you get bonus damage if you were unseen. And then every 40, you remember Umbral Glaive, right?
yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
The passive part of blotting out wards and spotting them also used to be an old Dustblade.
I'm still trying to look for the name. Like,
It was called Dustblade.
so wait, so it's literally called Display Attractor before.
Yes. The name did not change. You probably just can't find it because it's. You have to make sure you're checking the patch history on it.
Oh, patches are right. Cause that's what. Cause it counts. It now counts as a mythic item, right?
Yep.
So that's what I'm curious about because now they're bringing in certain items that makes into a mythic item. that that's why I was so confused about, because now it's like, why are certain items being placed as a mythic item that makes it even stronger? Because like I said, these items are basically what considered an impact of the outcome of a game.
Yep.
I don't want to not realize and realize at the last minute about how certain items can be like so impactful. That yes, there is champion reworks, there are buffs and nerfs, but all that matters too in terms of in game is about because they have base stats, right? But what that matters about what I like about is the items, because that with the build can heavily impact what your champion can bring into the game.
Right.
Like I talked about Zed for example. Once you bring Duskblade and Draktar into Zed or Eclipse, like that's a bunch of lethality into one champion deck. Like for example, if someone were to give Zed more lethality, he'd just be instant one shot with the ult. No, it doesn't matter. Just ult, that person's dead. Especially a squishy, right? That's what I consider as impactful. If someone were to give that item to someone else, like that has the base like advantage of a stat, we're gonna have fun with that champion. To be honest, that's what I
Yeah.
consider as the factors of a game. How that champion or that item can heavily impact the outcomes where, like say for example, objective bounties could not only can help you with said items, but the items itself can actually force into a now outcome where it can totally be like a table turn.
Right.
We all saw Turbo Chem Tank, Trinity Force still there, but we also Sunfire Aegis and all that too. But we also saw Turbo Chem Tank be released, and that actually helped a lot for like say Udyr and such, or Hecarim. And I do feel like that's a huge upgrade to where certain junglers or certain like other champions that's not been played can be played. That's where I'm wondering in your opinion, certain items can they still be considered make a champion playable because of the fact that those items are now being upgraded to a point where that makes a person playable. So would you think that would it be a player would it be not player would it be a champion that makes it playable or an item that makes the champion playable?
Could you repeat the question one more time, just so I can understand
Sorry,
what you're asking?
would you consider as the champion itself that makes it playable, or the item that makes the champion playable? Like, yes, there's item builds and all that
Ooh.
too,
Okay.
but would that champion,
Uh,
yeah,
I'd say it's. This is actually going to be a hot take. I think the champion itself matters more than the items because the items you build on the champion are based off what your champion can do.
okay,
So let's take for example, like a recent example, Zeri, right?
yeah,
She's supposed to be streamlined as a crit ADC. However, because the nature of her kit allowed her to proc on hits effectively,
mm-hmm.
she was able to create this weird freaking, Titanic Runaan's Triforce build.
Oh, you're right.
And while it is strong because of the items she uses,
Yes.
I think none of those items would have been built on her if the champion itself wasn't the problem behind it.
Okay.
If that makes sense to you.
No, yeah, I totally makes sense. But in my opinion, though, I would say it's the items because you can't really make a champion without the proper items like that connects with it. Because I do want to say, like, say for example, Katarina, right? Katarina is also a hybrid of AD and AP, or Corki. Corki is also a hybrid of AD or AP, to be honest. Like,
Right.
how in a situation would you actually like play without the item of a champion, right? You need items to actually build that champion up. That's what makes it strong. If it wasn't for the items, I consider that champion to be like, well, obviously it's basic, but because if League didn't include items, it would just be a skilled gap. But with the items itself, you're now making that champion into what it seems to be. That's why it makes it like top, jungle, mid, bot, or support. And that's why I thought an item will be better, because an item will be what makes the champion like playable. Is because of how much. Well, yes, champions are considered playable in general, even though you don't really need it. But it's what the items that makes it important. Shurilia's battle song, and let's say for example, what other movement item will be B? Gale Force could be it. Shurilia's battle song, Frost, huh?
Youmuu's Ghost Blade.
But that's not a mythic though. So I'm talking about mythics.
Oh,
I'm talking about mythic, bro.
okay. Proto Belt.
Proto Belt, yes. Imperial Mandate and Frostfire Gauntlet will be slowers, right? At least a movement slow.
Yeah.
Turbo Chem Tank, like those kind of items itself would make someone like Udyr, Hecarim, who else would be fast? Um, Zeri, Jinx, to be honest, but that's a little bit not on the table.
Rammus.
Rammus, Sion.
Scion doesn't need the extra
No, right?
movements. Because his ultimate caps at a certain point.
Right. Who else will be fast? I already mentioned Hootie, Hecarim, Zeri.
There's not a lot of. There's not that many movement speed abusers.
Karma.
To be honest.
Well, that's Karma, I guess, but
Nah.
no. But yeah, if you know what I mean, yeah, that kind of item itself would make that champion what it is. So that's why I consider an item that makes the champion playable. Because if it wasn't for like Aphelios, if Aphelios was nerfed and you don't basically give out the item that he's provided with, Aphelios would suck right now. That's why I consider it as okay. So Aphelios has got nerfed. He's not playable. But once you give him the proper items that like he can actually play with, then he's considered as playable. Because you give him like for example, Immortal Shield Bow, right? Or Gale Force. Gale Force is now a huge thing for ADCs because you can just dive right in with the missiles. So Gale Force Aphelios is now playable. That's why I consider it as an item as what makes a champion like really good. And you said how a champion in general is what makes it playable. Uh, who would you give as an example for as a champion in general that makes it like with or without an item, he's still good as it is. Which champion?
Well, typically an example I like to bring up is Zac.
Zac. Okay.
Zac does not need items for his goal. Or Zac does not need any specific item in order to do the job that he needs to do, which is go in, ult, or not. Well, just go in and disrupt the enemy line. Like sure, health in a vacuum, right? If everyone
No,
didn't
yeah.
have items, like he'd be able to disrupt the entire line with no problem. If he didn't have items, but everyone else did, it would be a little bit harder because he's squishier, right?
Right.
But the items don't really define the champion's job of going in and disrupting the enemy backline and front line.
Oh, that's actually a good point. That's actually a good point. You're right. Oh.
The okay, so the question that you bring up really, once again, depends on the champion, but typically champions who don't really require items to do what they need are champions with a lot of CC in their kit, which are typically supports or junglers, or sometimes mid laners. So let's take for example another example, Veigar, alright?
Yeah.
Disregarding the fact that he can stack AP perfectly fine just from like Q and his passive.
Yeah.
Uh the fact that he can still do missing health damage with his ultimate, and that he always has his cage up in a vacuum with no items every like 18 seconds at max rank.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to have items to still prevent people or forcing people to blow movement abilities to get out of the cage. Otherwise, his entire team is going to collapse out on them. You also have stuff like Nautilus, right? Where him hitting or not even just Nautilus, Blitzcrank and any sort of hooker. If they land their hook it doesn't matter if Nautilus is gonna get blown up.
I just heard that
They
word.
did their
Sorry.
job of pulling someone in
Sorry. I
and
just heard.
bringing them closer to the enemy line.
I just
Yeah,
heard.
Thresh too.
No, I just heard that word you said. I started laughing.
Which word?
I don't want to say it, but I think if you look back on what you said, I think you would know. But you said that word.
I don't know what word you're talking about.
You said hooker.
Oh,
That's basically the meme word for all like Thresh and all that Blitzcrank. You would just call them hookers.
they are a bunch of hooker champions.
Again, that's the meme of it. That's what I like about what now we're now calling them. We're calling them hookers now.
I've always called them hookers.
Really?
That's
Because
their job.
I mean,
Go
yeah. They're hook. They hook people, hook shots. But the way we call hookers, that just sounds so weird.
I mean, that's because there's context related to it.
No,
I
yeah,
can't just go out-
yeah.
I can't just go out into the public and say, "Hey, this person's a hooker." Like that's
No, I get it. I get it. But there's the fact that we're playing into a game and like. And the funny part about that is like the champion who is able to hook shot someone, and the fact that they're hook shotting for someone gives them an assist goal too. So they're
Right.
doing it for money too. So it makes it twice as funny. Okay, sorry. Go back. Go to what you said. I was I didn't mean to break it up, but what you said right now. Sorry.
But yeah, like to sum it up, it's basically champions who typically have whose main goal is to CC or disrupt the enemy team.
Yeah.
Typically, don't need the items in order to perform that job.
I mean, yeah, I agree with that. You make a good point on that because I thought, for example, items would be what makes the champion like as it is to make it very impactful. Because obviously, a league game wouldn't be good without what needs to be like details or any kind of like factors that can help win a game, right? It's just
You know?
if like I said before, if it was just champion itself, it would just be a skill gap. Yone would be a good melee champion. Garen wouldn't suck always. Caitlyn would be
They
the
would
best
suck without items.
because he just be Garen. He just have to be W and just spin everything. But that you could just get hit by Lux and die from that, right? Even without like I said without items, Lux would just beat
Sure.
him. So that's why I thought I was like, okay, that doesn't make sense because if it would be that, then champions would just be skill gap. Let's say for example, Caitlyn. Caitlyn will be has the longest range, right? And she can auto attack anybody if there's no items at all. The 6 crit shot and the ultimate, that long shot, could heavily impact someone that can result in life or death. Not result life or death in real life, but life or death in the game. And Zillion, for example, would actually heavily impact if it were no items, because he has the resurrection. He has the R. And Auction passive is just Auction, just revive anyone who just kills an ally. So those kind of things, I thought it's like it would make sense for no items, because it would be more of a skill gap. But because it wouldn't be fun of a game without items, so at least you figure out what the purpose of an item is to build that champion up, or build that person, build what they seem to be, to give them like tank, bruiser, mage. You know, I think it was you I talked about in terms of classes. If not, then I think that was the wrong person. I no, it was the last episode I think, but I mentioned about there's certain classes, league classes that makes them what it is, and there's like mages, bruisers, ADC marksmen's, ward guard vanguards and all that too. So I think the item is what makes it as it is. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any classes. It would just be champions.
Right.
And that's why I consider items can heavily identify what they are, or not heavily what they are, but what they can make into, because
Right.
that's what makes them playable and makes them really like winnable in a game where it's like Nautilus can actually be good with he'll be good with an auto attack, right? For like say you give him Black Cleaver, he'll be good on that, right? To be honest. Or not Black Cleaver.
Black Cleaver Nautilus.
No. You know what I mean, right? You know what I mean, right? A certain damage item for Nautilus, for example, because he has good engage, right? He'll be able to attack. He will kill someone with that item build, right? Or let's say Janna top. Janet's a support. Yet she's being played top and can actually heavily impact a game too. Maybe a supportive champion, but in a way you can actually damage a person, right? So
Ooh, okay. That is not the goal of Janatop back when it was played.
no, I know the history of Janatop, but that's what I'm talking about, right? You could actually take advantage of that. Veigar, for example, or not Veigar, Seraphine, for example, she can actually be turned into a support or a mage at the bottom lane in the support. Doesn't matter. You can actually give her Ludens or Leandries, and you burn a enemy or burst a champion. That's what I'm talking about. A champion that can be played without items is just a skill gap. But an item itself you make into it is what makes a person smarter than the other and makes it more to a skill gap. That's why I consider items as what makes a champion. And I do see that you have a point about the champions like Zac and Zer. What was it again? You said Zac and who?
Zac, Vigar.
Vargar and all the champions, right? You made a good
Yeah.
point about that. But like I said, if it wasn't for that, then there would it would just be a person with the ability to know to know their champion and maybe be much of a mechanical player, right? But there's also aesthetics too, where it's like awareness, macro versus micro, and synergy, right? So it will be a synergized team game to a point where it's like, oh, I gotta build something like this to help support my teammates. Seraphine can actually be mid or support. That's where there's flex. I like how they make it into a flex to where a champion can both flex into a different role. That's why there's in these updates they try to buff or nerf the champion that makes it playable or unplayable. And in this episode, I do want to talk about like that's what we're here to bring hot takes. How a certain champion or an item or a stat itself can make this person or thing playable because of how much they're gonna reduce or increase to impact said the game. If you have anything to disagree with or not, you can.
Not particularly.
Okay. I mean,
I mean, I've been following along. I've been agreeing with all the points that you've been making.
although I'm a silver player and you're a higher rank, I just assume that you have some sort of like counterintuitive for your decision for your opinion. Like if you know any like history or such like, or if you have any like prior like skill base that has to do with items or sort not. You know. That's why I'm. People always consider me as weird because I always love theories. I love theories. I love controversies that can bring up really like good hot takes. But nobody likes it because people are just too lazy to think about it. That's why I want to bring the League Lounge up to bring in the hot takes and to bring in every other ones to start off with for this league. And you gotta admit though, it is a pretty hot take though, right? Because in this case, these kind of takes I thought it would be good to people thinking about. It's like, okay, maybe I could change the meta for this. Like this kind of thing, you actually can change the meta, right?
I don't. I don't think introducing number changes that have already been mentioned or adding specific tools
Mm-hmm.
would change the meta in a way that we could visibly like distinguish without actually seeing such changes being implemented in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Cause let's think about the Diana ult, for example, right?
Yeah.
They eat, cause what they did with her was swap her E and her ultimate, and they put damage on her knockup, while also making her dash on a relatively same cooldown, but it's now a basic ability. And people wouldn't have batted an eye to the. I know people paid attention to the Diana rework because now she has more tools that are easily accessible, and now she has extra damage. But then you compare the rework to something akin to like the Rammus rework. There's a reason why you barely see Rammus anymore, despite the fact that he got that new ultimate change. Is just because his champion wasn't that strong to begin with, and that didn't really change any. Or him being able to jump over walls with his ultimate and get a knockoff, that didn't really change anything for him. So it's like unless we were able to physically see what new changes to a champion could entail, we would never be able to say this is going to change the game or this didn't really do anything at all.
Okay. Huh. Actually, no, you guys also make a big point, good point about that too. But I mean that's a gap though. Like that's a gap between the ranks itself. Low elo versus high elo. Someone who wants to take advantage of those champions that doesn't know that champion, and basically put that out to the test.
Right.
Versus high elo when they already knew they have prior history of that, then they don't want to play that champion because they gone through some oopsies or they actually gone through some victories.
Right.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. That totally also makes sense too. Of having a certain gap of a rank, I would say, because nobody else would know how to play a champion unless you one trick it. And once you one trick it, you pretty much want to learn another champion to see if you can have any other taste in it. And if it does relate to your taste, then you just main it again. And now you have basically have two one tricks or three one tricks and all that too. And that's how I do feel like if you get better at champion, you pretty much learn how to be a high elo player. I guess you would say. Would you agree or disagree? If you manage to play through a champion, like you play a lot through it, and you get better at it, you basically learn how to be more of a high elo player. You basically learn how to create more skill based, create more synergy with the other teammates, and to that create that mentality of saying, "Oh, I know how to play this champion. Just have trust," and you manage to carry down that team, or you pretty much know how to like mechanically like dodge, or not mechanically dodge. Like say for example, that someone else picks that other champion that you know that you can pretty much counter it or counter it play against it really well.
Hmm.
Would you consider that as a build towards a higher elo player? Like say, uh,
Oh, different topic.
oh no,
I'd say
I know I know different topic, but I'm just saying
I know.
because
Don't worry
because
about
you mentioned how it's like uh a different champion could relate to how a person can be played, right?
it. Yeah.
Cause but that's why I'm wondering about would a silver player, for example, or gold player. I mentioned this in the last episode. Would a gold player playing, let's say, Sivir, right? That knows Sivir very well. Like let's say the top Sivir versus a Darius, for example, right? But he knows his Darius very well, and he knows the Sivir. Each other they know that they're champions really well because they know they played it multiple times. Would that consider like be like an equal fight because they know their champions really well versus like all that shenanigans. Is a silver player silver or something like that? It doesn't matter. But versus let's say a platinum player, or a gold
Yeah.
player versus a platinum player, would that heavily impact what the champion is? Even despite them knowing what their mechanical skill is, they know what their champion is and all that blah blah blah.
I'd say yes because the only reason why people are climbing is not because of the champion itself. It's more so the mechanics behind the game in terms so macro, let's put it that way.
Mhm.
You could be the best, let's say, Sona player in the entire world, and they could be silver. And the only reason they're not climbing is even though they're great at Sona mechanics, they might not understand how to play around the map perfectly. Let's say, for example, she never roams to a single dragon, right?
Mhm.
I don't think being exceptional at your champion would definitely determine the outcome of the game. I think it helps,
I
but
just
I don't
called.
think.
I just called out your controversy, man. You just said. I just basically proved the controversy of what you said about a champion itself being played, like a champion in general being played. Like that's what I'm talking about. The fact that this not the champion is like something else that makes the champion like worthwhile. That makes a player per player play it because
I'd
it's
say so, you know.
yeah. So I was like, I assume I know what you mean, but it's like I assume it's something like there's something wrong with that sentence. It's like, what could it be? and you mentioned about micro. It's like this is all factors. That's why I was like, it doesn't make sense for a champion itself to be really good, of a player like for a player to play it. And it's
Right.
like there's also factors that I thought like items, gold, other factors that can actually heavily impact what a champion can do. And I reason why I thought a champion itself wouldn't be good because in general wouldn't be good because like I said, it's just a skill gap. Then you mentioned there's also micro macro and all that too. Items, I like I said, items I think this also matters more because yes, there's shutdowns, there are gold, there are objectives, there are towers and all that too. There's also local and all that too, local gold and like global gold where people gain gold just because they have plates and all that too, and first turrets, first blood, experience and all that too. But I feel like what makes it an item build more important in the terms of in terms of what I was saying, and how a certain player can dictate is what you mentioned this before, how a person knows their build versus a silver player versus a platinum player and all that too. That's why I know. That's why I consider like knowing how a platinum player play better than a silver player, because of the item build they're building into that other person. If you agree or disagree.
Okay. So my argument to that, in terms of you saying items are a big factor, is I think items are a tool to help people get ahead.
But yeah, it's a tool.
But
It's a
I,
factor though.
it's a factor, but I don't think it's the end all be all factor.
And no Beal, like describe that for me. I don't think the
Like I
audience.
don't think tools are the I don't think tools are the main or biggest factor in determining if a person will win a game or not.
Okay.
Because in order to get that gold in the first place, you have to be good, right?
Yeah.
Like even through CSing, you have to be good to get that CS. And gold getting gold is just a reward for being good.
Dang it. Wow. Keep going. Keep going. This is actually pretty good. You actually
Like
got me.
this is why you can even hear like the O10 Yasuo spikes. It doesn't matter if he's feeding at the beginning. Once he starts getting good, he's getting good.
Oh man.
Like
Okay.
you can tell that gold doesn't matter if he's gonna win the game like that.
Especially like champions that get first item, they get unstoppable. For example, like Blade of the Rune King, I forget was it Viego or Irelia. They just end up wonking at other champions.
Yeah, that'd be Irelia, but
Like that's what I
the
that's what I figured. But you mentioned how there's also CS wise to build into that item and all that too. So I was like, oh shoot, you got me in a corner there. Oh crud.
like how are you gonna get those items if you're not good enough to get the gold, you know?
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
Like think about it this way, you're playing let's just say you're playing like Vayne into Caitlyn. You're not gonna get gold unless you kill the Caitlyn, or if the Caitlyn decides to back off for whatever reason. Like that Caitlyn should always be winning that lane because they know what they're doing with their champion.
Range wise, CS wise, and XP wise and all that too. You want to like have the advantage of certain stats that a champion has that can uh lead to an increase of items and such.
Right.
Whoo! Okay, I got stumped. I got stumped. You beat me. This is why I love. This is why I fight against. This is why I love not arguing but debating against high elo players because they know exactly what they're trying to go against, and I'm like, ooh, that what I like because that's what makes a hot take. Ooh, I bow down to you, Volter. For oh man. Okay, that was actually a good conclusion to make, though. Yeah, that was actually a good conclusion to end it with, especially now we know now we know the ending of the factors of a game that makes it what makes a winnable game. You basically know your champion a little more along with players. I know I talked with certain other different person, but if you were to give a player like on a roster, would it be consider a super team be a good roster or a team that can synergize well, like Cloud9 for example versus Team Liquid?
So are you saying, do you think individual talent matters more or less compared to team synergy.
Exactly. Like would like say for example, including this episode that we're putting in of items, CS, champions, all that too, including the items with that and the champions and all that blah blah blah, blah with the players, would you consider a super team be good, better, or a team that can actually synergize really well?
I think a player's individual skill matters, but I don't think it matters more than the synergy of a team. Because let's here's an infamous example. Darshan. He's absolutely notorious for being unworkable
Mm-hmm.
to be with. He's just like it's annoying to be on his team, but he is a very good player. Same with like streamers like Tarzan or like TF Blade. They're very good by themselves, but they cannot work with a team.
With Dardoch, for example, right? Or no,
With
not Dardoch.
Dardoch. Why did I say no? It's Dardoch. Why did I say Darshan? Darshan's fine. Maybe I'm mixing up. Star something, whatever.
Either Dardoch
Uh,
or Darshan, it doesn't matter. But I think yeah, you're
right.
right about Darshan. But make a point. Make a point. Sorry.
But basically, it's like it's a team game. It doesn't matter if you're the goated player. I think being a goated player is a factor, but it's not the biggest reason for why you're winning the game.
Right.
So
Okay.
there's my take on that. Synergy matters way more.
Okay. Good. Okay. That's why I conclude on that. That's like actually this is why I like this 2-part episode because I want to see from your from other people's updates and opinions on that too, and that's what makes a good hot take in League Lounge, guys. All right, fun day topic. We're gonna end it right there with the fun day topic. You have the following stats that can potentially win you the game based on gold. Which stat would you want to see the most gold bounties on? Like increase on it, or would you rather see it decrease? To be honest, or whatnot. Okay. Solo kills, not shutdowns. Solo kills to 300, 900 gold. Would you rather increase or decrease that? And it has to be on a streak. Objectives, Drake and Herald. I don't know how much gold that is. Do you know how much gold it gives out individually?
For Baron, it's 300 per person. For Herald, it's 50. Or for Dragon, it's 50 for everyone that interact. Or not even. Yeah, it's 50 for everyone who interact. Actually, I'm a liar. It's 50 whoever last hits the Dragon.
50 last hit, okay. And Herald.
No, it's 25. It's 25 because I remember doing it with Vigar. I'm just like lost. I haven't
Kick
played
W.
League in a while.
Okay, and
But
Herald?
I think Herald's 100 to 150. But the main goal for Herald is not for kill, is not the gold got from
No, I know.
Herald. It's the
I'm
power
just
points
saying.
you're gonna get
I'm
from
just
it.
saying. So I'm just saying, what stat would you want to see the most gold bounties on? Like more gold on towers and plates. 160 gold times 5. Like you have 5 plates
Uh-huh.
is 800 gold. Local
Yeah.
is like if you actually kill it by yourself, a plate that's 250. Any other global, oh no, killing a tower yourself gives it 250. Any other people like first tower and all that gets 50 gold, right?
Yeah.
So that's also a stat if you want to see more gold bounty on or experience. 50 to 300 XP pace wise and gold pace. 2 per 1 second or something like that. 1.5 like that. So which stat would you want to see more like gold bounties on? Solo kills, objectives, towers or plates, or XP. XP pace.
Honestly,
Like we have
I
objective
don't even.
bounties, for example. We have
I say maybe XP, but I think the amount of gold that every single objective is rewarding right now is in a perfect state.
Okay, so shutdowns you would consider as perfect anyways because it's now an opposite of
Yes.
what solo kills is. XP, yeah, XP you always consider, and we do have objective bounties now, right? So
Yes.
the only thing that's left out is just XP and gold pace. But would you want to see an increase of a gold pace, like say 4 gold per second or something like that, or XP more
No.
or more XP at least quicker? Like for example, at least on bot lane. Bot lane there's 2 people anyways, right? So at least you can get like slightly more.
Maybe I'd say maybe give like an innate XP bonus to a support item, but I don't think straight up giving everyone XP an extra or more XP per second to be a good option because the game's already balanced around how long you stay in how long you stay around waves to get XP. And if you were to reward players a little bit more just for not doing their job, then I think that would have a negative effect towards,
Okay.
you know, we're going to see more roaming mid laners. We're going to see more gank heavy junglers because they don't need to stay in their respective areas as long because they're getting more XP per second.
Okay. And how much XP is one solo laner? Top or mid?
If you were to solo kill them,
No, no, solo, like CS. Like a solo laner, top, middle, or bot. Not support, not jungle. How much XP would that be for one person? I said 50, right?
if you killed them.
Not killing them.
I'm not quite getting the question. I'm sorry.
I'm talking about in the presence. Like if you're on that lane with next on the minions when you're CSing, how much XP
Oh,
would you get?
well, I can't say for certain because I don't really look at XP numbers. I can just have a feeling for it.
Well,
But
estimate.
I'd say casters are like 20 something XP, melees are like 30 something XP.
Okay, so a little short. Okay. So yeah, that I do feel like would you want to increase that kind of thing a little bit more? If
No.
or no, not that. But you said support item you want to give them a little more in it XP pace, right?
That'd be like the only XP thing I would change, if anything at all. I think it's already balanced enough.
Okay. But you do want to. But would you want to see more like gold pace up more? Like everything else, like you say, we have like what
No.
1.5
I,
gold per second, right?
yeah.
Like, would you want to
I'd
increase at
say
least
no.
two? Oh no, sorry. Go.
I just don't think giving a gold increase is the right idea because if you increase gold, you're increasing the pace of the game, and the game is already fast enough.
But what about expenses? Like, you guys increase item price more or something like that?
No.
No.
Okay. So, let cuz okay, let's just hypothetically, you're giving more gold per second to other players, but you're also increasing the price of items.
Uh huh.
That's just encouraging people to play more recklessly, which as fun as it'd be to watch is not how the style of the game should go.
Okay.
Cuz now people are fighting much more often to try to get 300 gold compared to before. And if a person gets behind, now they're even more behind because they have to wait longer for these more expensive items.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna be honest, CS per second is almost completely negligible. Almost like I'd say only 10 to 15% of the gold that you get are spending is based off time.
I
Most of
see.
it is from CSing or kills.
I see. Okay. Wow, that was actually wow, that was actually a little bit of hefty take. Okay, nice. So as we're about to conclude, Vulture, any announcements? In case you didn't know, we're gonna move the AAC League's MSI tournament to June and July because I have something going on in April. Um, a little personal issue, not like a
Yep.
problem, but I will say this: my dad apparently got cancer, so he is bad. So he wants me to visit him in Korea, where I'm gonna be going to Korea, possibly maybe visiting T1 headquarters, maybe. Maybe I hope so. I just want to take a. It's my first time in Korea, so I just want to take a tour around too. So
Gotcha.
maybe I'm gonna be gone for April, and that's where we have a good opportunity to gather all the organizations from May, so that we're gonna have our first MSI International. So how are you feeling on that, Volter? Do you feel like an or different bringing in different organizations for amateur league is a good thing, especially now that amateur competitions kind of dying down.
Mm, I can't say for certain. It'd be cool to see organizations merging, but
Not merging, but like competing against each other,
oh,
like actual worlds, but for amateurs. That's where we're bringing for ASC League.
I think it'd be cool to represent or different leagues to represent each other in a tournament, but obviously it requires more people, and obviously it also requires organizations who are willing to do that.
Yeah, that's why for this season it's kind of like only couple organizations, like 3 or 4. That's a good start, to be honest, at least. But
Right.
that's what I was looking for, because at least with the different organizations, it's not around the world. It's not like Korea, LPL. It's not like 3 teams or 4 teams to bring in, right? It's like organizations, 2 teams a little bit, and you have like 6 teams in total, or 4 organizations with 8 teams. That's what makes it funner, right? At
Yeah.
least in amateur competition, I'm just looking forward for more like hefty clown fiestas, like, but more like competitive integrity, because now with league, people are just inting and trolling like that, and we're losing that motivation for those people who are just interested in competing. It's like, oh, I want to try competing on that too. Like, try something in amateur league here, bring it to worlds, bring it internationally, or not internationally, but digitally, So that's why I bring an AC League up, so that we can actually now have our first in mid-season invitationals, where one team, or it doesn't matter which team, but one team is gonna take it all. One team versus one team is a free for all. So that's why I brought this up, and I kind of made you as a mod, because knowing your reputation, knowing your history, I think you pretty much can make a huge good like hype out of it.
We'll see.
I hope so. That's why I'm trying to bring in all the people, because May and June, the month of May, everyone's finishing, so we're gonna finish it off right
Right.
there. So I honestly, are you excited for this? I'm actually excited for this. I'm actually loving getting chills.
I've haven't been able to do competitive league for a while, so I'm definitely excited for this too.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm getting chills for this, and it's gonna come out in like what, 3 months? Whew. Okay, I'm ready for 3 months or 2 months at least. So yeah, we're gonna conclude right here, guys. That's gonna be League Lounge episode 8, the two-parter of the factors of a winning game. I'm here with Volter 43, and like I said, the other episode we were talking about was the Season X. But Volter 3, any shoutouts you guys want to make? You want to make before we end?
None from me.
All right, then. Yeah, we're gonna conclude the episode right here. This is Jake Juicy Kim, and this is League Lounge episode 8. We'll see you next time, or even after the break here when I go to Korea. See you then.